Fat Boys, I know. League recap now. Now, I did think about this. Number one, it was really busy around that time. But two, by the end of the fantasy season, you're sick of hearing me. And realistically, I can see week views go down. And the ones who view, I'm assuming, are the ones who are in it for the money. And in fact, some people weren't even adjusting their roster consistently in that last week. So to get a video from me seemed kind of redundant. Also, I was super busy. Can't underestimate that one. But where I really thought this year, what if I could put a couple videos out before? Because right now, as soon as August hits or June hits, I just start thinking about fantasy. And I've always wanted to do some videos to start the year off, but I don't want to do a pre-draft, here's what I'm thinking, here's my sleepers. That's kind of stupid when I'm drafting against you. Why would I want you to know that? So why not save the recap till now? So if you forgot what happened last year, and you probably did, take a look at this. If you don't want to watch the whole thing, that's fine. Just go and watch your piece, watch the end of it, mark it as read, bam, you're good to go. If you do want to watch it all because you want to see how everyone else did, I kind of forgot too, I had to do a little bit of research, check it out. And then remember, there's going to be another video coming up. So anywho, we're going to start at the bottom, go to the top. So here's who finished number 10. Sadly, I hate that the last pick finishes last because that gives them that idea that it was predestined. I don't think it was predestined, Justin, and I always have to double check because the Waylands and Underhill thing, you jerk stores. But actually, it really was draft dependent. I mean, your pluses, by the way, I think for everybody, I'm just going to go something that went well, maybe something that went not so great, and then the reason why you're here. And obviously for the people lower in the pool, the reason why you're here is going to be a little bit more on the negative, and then we go up. I mean, looking at your draft, this could have gone a number of different ways. And actually, if you look at the regular season standings, you really weren't destined for last. You just missed the playoffs. You could have made a run, and then just you fell off the last couple weeks. I think you were paying attention, but I'm not 100% sure. You look at your top couple picks, and realistically, on the positive side, Amon-Ra, fantastic call. I think he was the wide receiver 3 at the end of the year, so to get him at the end of the first round, that's fantastic. James Cook was a bit of a steal. He was the 5th best running back. Devontae Adams, obviously being a touchdown factory, he was the wide receiver 9 on the year. And then Brandon Aubrey, I mean, we all made fun of you for taking the kicker early, but at least you got the kicker that kicks everything from everywhere all the time. I think he ended up being the kicker 3 or something like that. I hate paying attention to kicker stats because kickers suck. The problem was your misses were pretty big misses, right? Obviously, Jaden Daniels, that did not pan out injury-wise. RJ Harvey didn't really pan out, and then you kind of go down. You took a risk on a couple of youngins, and they didn't really work for you. Now, I'm going to take a look through at what we ended up. And here's the other kicker is you got one of the people that in other leagues saved the playoff run in Michael Wilson. By the last few weeks of the season, he was a top 5 wide receiver. So it was all set up for you, obviously taking Jordan Love. Maybe if you would have made an upgrade to quarterback a little bit earlier, maybe something would have happened. I don't know. I think you were very matchup based, and really at the end of the year just kind of fell off. So yes, 10th, but you definitely were a lot higher. In a very similar vein, Horst, you kind of hitched your wagon to a quarterback that in any other year would have been your savior in Lamar Jackson, and he was just a stinker for the whole year. Kittle was just injury concern from the get-go, and BTJ was just, I wanted to make a reference, but it comes across pretty he essentially was a league loser this year. So even though Nico Collins, bit of a gutsy pick at the 8th spot, but he did finish as the 8th best wide receiver. Not really want from your first-round pick, but, at least there's something there. If you look at your 11th and 12th, those were 2 big steals. Etienne was essentially at the end of the year, was kind of one of those people to bridge a lot of people into the playoffs. Dallas Goedert, weirdly enough, was the tight end 3, but that's a whole other mess. And you did have some points that you at the end of the year, you made that bit of a run. But if you look, you were just a little bit too injury concerned, especially at the start. Now, picking up Lawrence, again, if you would have made a bit more of a push and gone to the top 6, you had some of the guys that really did push in those last few weeks. Unfortunately for you, finishing in the bottom section, it didn't really work out for you. And if we look at your actual matchup here, I don't know that everyone was really paying attention because we had some people who were not playing that people left in. So the 9-10 spot wasn't necessarily competitive. I'm always up for a way to make this one more competitive just because I want to make sure that people care until the end. Either way, dudes, 9 and 10, that is not where you want to be this year. And judging by your competitive nature, it wouldn't be surprised if you come back this year with a whole new outlook. Mark, in the consolation side, you fell short, so you do finish in the 8th spot, but you at least made a little run in the post or in the consolation side. At the 6th spot, taking CeeDee Lamb was a bit gutsy at the time, especially when I kind of snatched CMC right after you. But If we knew he was going to get injured, obviously he wouldn't have done that. Ifs, buts, candy, nuts, didn't really know so much. That was a bit of a bummer for you. Josh Jacobs had a middling performance as well, although we know in the past he's been kind of a league savior. Got to give it up, though. Your wide receivers late. JSN was the wide receiver 2, and not by that much. So he was essentially 1B. Olave had a great season. He was the wide receiver 6, especially with that offense. And I think the steal, you look all the way down, Drake May was the quarterback 3. So your late rounds paid off. Your front couple, your top 3, womp womp. I think that's what might have done it. Now just scrolling myself back over here. You did finish with a few pickups, and obviously CD coming back at the end. Ramondre was a great pickup for you as well. So you were active on the waiver wire front. And like I've said many, many times, I'll show this a bit more when B comes up. There's only 2 people that finished the season with 2 wins. That's the champion and the consolation champion. So Mark, that was almost you after a relatively disappointing season. But speaking of the guy who takes it on this one, that's B. We're going to be talking about you next. You know, I'm noticing a trend here, crew, and that trend is your first round pick does in fact matter. You can't win it on your first round pick, but you sure as shit can set yourself up for some losses. JJ was not the guy this year, and I know a lot of people were really worried about him. B, you were not at the 3 spot, but maybe you should have been. Bucky Irving as well. AJ Brown, weirdly enough though, AJ Brown actually was the wide receiver 12 at the end of the year. But that has a much more to do with injuries, whereas Brown actually played. It's just you couldn't tell every week that he played. Zay Flowers was a good steal for you. He was the wide receiver 7 by the end of the year. But that was kind of it. You were kind of makeshifting a lot. I mean, Kenneth Walker was usually a fairly consistent start. Mahomes obviously blew up, and I mean that in a not so great way. If we take a look, I mean, having Brissett in at the end, you did make a few key pickups, tight end spot, and getting some depth with your Chicago dude. But you were kind of stick handling for most of it, and you actually had a pretty disappointed regular season, but then came on and did well in the consolation. So to win your last 2, we already showed the matchup. That shows a little bit of grit and resilience, but I think this year you're really going to be focusing on those first couple rounds because you know, with your knowledge, getting a waiver wire pickup or a late draft pick that hits is well within your range. Just got to clean up those first couple rounds. Speaking of cleaning up the first couple rounds, now I was super pumped to get CMC 7. He was the running back 1, and yeah, I won the draft, and then I just did not. I just should not have been reading so many articles about DiCaprio. I know I make that reference every year, but my team was just way too young. Look at my 3-4 here. What the hell was I thinking with rookie running backs who occasionally did something? Drake London, still think he's a great asset, but not in that particular offense this year. My worst part too is I fell victim to 2 rookies late here. Huge steals in the first 4 to 5 weeks, which is why I came out of the gate running, and then they just shut her down. Egbuka looked like he was actually got hurt, and I think he wasn't 100% healthy, but healthy enough to keep playing. And Tyler Warren was just victim to the fact that all of a sudden Indianapolis' offense, don't want to impose Indiana, they just honked after a certain point. We take a look. I mean, I'm obviously pretty active on the waiver wire. Dax Prescott was a pretty good steal for me. He ended up being a very late draft, but was the quarterback 5. Don't forget about Dallas's offense, people. When you try and save your season with a Cleveland running back, you know you are in trouble. So I did make the playoffs, squeak in. Unfortunately, not only did I get knocked off in the first round of the playoffs, then Ben took care of me in the elusive 5-6 game. But enough about me. Let's talk about the guy who won that game. Let's go to Ben. I just showed how Ben took care in the 5th, but obviously he's another case of making the playoffs, then falling short in that first round. But take a look at his first 3 rounds. This could have been a very, very different year. I mean, Kyren Williams, everyone always seems to hate on, but he did enough to get through, gets the touchdowns when needed. Puka Nacua, that's a wide receiver 1. To get that late in the second round, we're going to call that a steal. And then Gibbs, you know, it's funny. Coming out of the gate, everyone's talking about Gibbs as a potential number 1 this year. He was the number 4, though, last year. So you took him 4 in 4. I guess that all works out. Weirdly enough, I'm going to make fun of Kelsey, but then I can't because the tight end position was so crap bagels. He was actually the tight end 4. That's how bad the tight end position was last year. So inconsistent. So you were able to get some points later. The Scottaboo, I mean, you know you love him, and then he got hurt. So knowing you hit the waiver wires early, often, as best you could. We see a few pickups here that helped you through, and even finishing with Burrow, who'd been hurt, and Purdy who'd been hurt. Purdy, though, was actually one of those guys that if you had 14, 15, 16, like weeks 14, 15, 16. He paid off in spades. So you were kind of unlucky the way it boiled down. You did definitely have a team that could put up points. You're one of the few in this week to actually exceed expectations. Joey Burrow and Nakua did a lot of that to you, and that was enough to put me down. So 5th is not where you wanted to end up, but at least you finished it on a win. All right, this one now hurts. We're dealing with our top 4. These are the people that walk into the semis knowing they have a 3 out of 4 chance of finishing with some money, and we're talking about the 4th who missed out. And if you remember, it missed out and it hurt. But let's talk about your draft first. I mean, Will, you had a reason to kind of roll over here. If you look at the tops, I mean, Derrick Henry at 9, some people weren't really sure, but hey, he finished as the running back 7, so you could have done a lot worse there. Unfortunately, Neighbors got hurt. Higgins was inconsistent. Hurts you as much as he helps you, but he was the QB 9, so you didn't really have a whole lot of luck here. Looking at this draft, I would have not have thought that you finished 4th, right? I don't think like too many busts, but if we take a look at some of the movement you had here, Pitts was a bit of a savior. Rondell Robinson, don't make fun of him yet. He actually had a good playoff push. You kind of just knitted together enough people to get you through week by week. So you made the playoffs. That's all you had to do. You got Evans late after, all the injury concerns, and you just kept putting up tough weeks in 12, 13, 14, etc. And how do we know this? Because in the bronze medal, look at that, 1.36 points you fell to Waylon in order to get some money, and it was Jalen who hurt you the most because everybody else at least did all right, and Derrick Henry was trying his best to just carry him. Every year we say Derrick Henry's not going to do it, and then he does it until the one time I guess he doesn't, but let's see how it works. Pitts kind of burnt you there, and I told you Wan'Dale wasn't so bad. You got beat by Swift, unfortunately. So this was actually one of our better matchups in the last week for those who can remember. Sorry, Will, you get the Womp Womp award for the 4th, but let's talk about John now in the 3rd spot. If we did it all again, I'm wondering who Waylon would go with the number 1. And if you remember, this was probably, of all the years that we have drafted, the least predictable number 1 pick. And he went Jamar Chase. And at the start of the year, that didn't look great. But then, near that run, if people remember when all of a sudden Flacco was just throwing to him, suddenly Chase's stock bumped up. He did finish as the wide receiver 4, so don't snub on it yet. He also took the only tight end that mattered last year in the 3rd round, which turns out to be a big steal when you look at everybody else's tight ends. And Jonathan Taylor was a first half season MVP, then fell pretty hard near the end, but he still finished at running back 2, because remember, he was on a tear. He was killing it the first 6 to 8 weeks for Waylon, and we were all facing it. He also got the 2 Williams that ended up being steals, Javonte, that late, and then to end up, I believe, in our scoring setting, he was the running back 11, whereas the other dude he took in the 6 was actually wide receiver 10, so not so bad. And Swift was sneaky. He didn't have weeks where he went off all the time, but when he was there, he was kind of that sneaky league winner. So we already kind of took a look at where he ended up. I went to the wrong one. See, you guys always throw me off with the Whalens and the Underhills, and could you just put your own name on it? That would be just wonderful. There we go. Remember, too, he also picked up probably one of the MVPs off the waiver wire, Matthew Stafford, who ended up being the quarterback 2. So Waylon, with his aggressive moves and realizing that there's only one tight end you actually want, that's where we end up with a pretty happy Waylon. Sure, he would have rather been in the finals, but the return to grace for him. 3rd place, not so shabby. Remember, Jake, it's only a gambling problem if you don't win or finish 2nd. This case, you were fine. Yes, you would have preferred a better final. You kind of fell a little bit. And actually, I do have to say it. You're going to see it in a second. And Waylon would love me to tell you, had Waylon made the finals, he would have beat both guys in the finals. He had the top score. There you go. But he didn't. So, Jake, you had a bit of a bad last week, but we're going to get to that in a second. You had a great season. Your boy Josh Allen in number 3. I mean, quarterback 1, and no one's surprised about that. I think the surprise, though, Chase Brown, most people like to just pass on grass. He was the running back 8th, so don't sneeze on him. Barkley was a bit of your disappointment, so you didn't have an awesome one, but he didn't fully tank, and that's the important part, is he did have weeks where he was relevant. I'd say not a steal, but probably your more aggressive move with Pickens at the 5, and he was the wide receiver 5 on the year. And then we look at, and we know you're an active person outside of the waiver wire. You ended up with Jameson Williams, even though I credited someone else, and Harold Fannin was a tight end that at least did something near the end of the year, and since he did nothing at the beginning, he actually was more productive than you think. That was where the tight end stats, you really have to be careful, because Tyler Warren, who did everything in the first 6 games, he ended up being the wide receiver or the tight end 6 just because of that, but he did nothing near the end of the year. And I think Fannin was the flip of that. Didn't do a whole lot early, but all of a sudden when Cleveland realizes they just have to check down, he got you points. Teddy Mack had weeks, but I don't think we need to go too much into every single one. I thought he was going to end up being a huge steal, and he was all right. He had his weeks, for sure. Unfortunately for you, his weeks were not at the end. You didn't have him in anyway. You went T. Higgins. But we can see here just a little bit of underperformance. Your boy stood up for you. Chase Brown stood up for you. Cleveland Browns did something for you. That's when you know you're in trouble. And your kicker defense were all right. You just needed more production, especially from the guys like Barkley and any of your wide receivers that you put in. So you did fall to Chaz, who we're going to talk about in a second. But like I said, I do have to at least highlight it, that these two, the bronze medal game, actually both outscored the finals. I know they would want me to tell you that. But you know what? Doesn't matter. If they were that good, they would have won the semis. Speaking of the guy who won the semis and then won the whole thing, let's talk about Chaz. Sometimes in sports you have to remove your bias. So if we were not in a league with Chaz and we did not lose to Chaz, we probably would have been cheering for Chaz. He squeaked himself into the playoffs, just got in, and then went on a tear. Definition of the guy who just went after it and got the guys who produced when they needed to. Now, it's in another video that you're going to see in a few minutes, well, depending on when you watch them. Apparently, according to Yahoo, and it wasn't overwhelming this year, Bijan Robinson was the guy that was on the most or the highest percent of teams who ended up winning. And in our case, Chaz, he fell to you at number 2. You took him. Now, he's only the running back 3, but it did work out pretty well for me. I think even around the bend, because sometimes when you draft early, who's your second round pick? HM was actually the running back 6, so not so bad there, which really made up for the fact that Bowers, Burrow both had massive injury issues. Same with the Dunze. Harrison was just a big disappointment. Your boy Caleb stepped up for you all the way down. He ended up, I believe, in this league, the quarterback 6. So to get him at the 12th spot was pretty great. But again, your roster didn't look amazing, but your updates essentially kind of did. I mean, Goff was a good pickup. Diggs actually got you a few random weeks. You went for some strange, and it paid off for you in different ways. But you were really a matchup-based guy. And I remember when we played you, I kind of played you in that middle when all of a sudden you started to turn on a bit because you started off pretty weak. To go on a run that you went on after your start is actually pretty epic. And if we look at your team that you dressed for the last one, I mean, you didn't go for your boy. Just got to throw it out there. Your boy, I think Caleb, yeah, he would have been the guy you wanted to start just to shut everybody else in the bronze medal game up, and that would have put you over the top. But looking at this, to be 500 and squeak all the way through, that's respect. Now, Bijan, there's a reason why so many people had him and did all right. At least you got your running backs to be roughly where they needed to be. Receivers, just not a massive disappointment. Like I said, Diggs ended up being a huge pickup. We can dissect it all we want. A champion's a champion. And Chaz, this year, you are a champion. Congratulations. An epic storied run. They should make a Disney movie out of this season. Gents, we're just getting started. There's another video to kind of recap the year on the more fantasy football-y side. I'll be in touch with all the things that we need to decide, draft dates, prep, all that fun stuff. It's August. What else you got to do?